Campaign structure. This is the second really important thing that we're going to talk about. And this is, again, all about campaign management, making sure it's well planned so that you get the most bang for your buck, so to speak. So, campaign structure. The thing I want to focus on here is not necessarily the words, but the fact that this is obviously a hierarchy in a waterfall type way. And what we're going to do, actually, let's go on. We'll come back to that slide in a moment. Within AdWords, you set up an account. Your account is your login, in the same way as a Hotmail account is a set of login details. Within your account, you have 25 campaigns, paid search campaigns. Within each of those campaigns, you have something called ad groups, up to 100, but if you want more, Google will give you more, it's not a problem. Within those ad groups are where your key phrases live. So it's like Russian dolls. You have campaigns at the top. Within the campaigns, you have ad groups, and ad groups are basically collections of key phrases. The reason this is important is because this is the ad group, and let's say it's DVD players. It has all your DVD key phrases. The reason this is important is that when you write an advertisement in paid search, the advertisement is applied to everything in that ad group. So, for instance, if this ad group included DVD players and CD players, as an example, you would need to write an advert that covered both of those. But because we've been sensible and we've split it up and said, this is DVD players only, we are now able to write a really nice targeted advert that focuses on DVD players. This is good because it means our advert is more likely to be relevant to the key phrase that someone types in. And it's also good for the quality score because the key phrase is likely to include DVD, our advert would include DVD, our quality score is likely to rise. So by making sure that your campaign is properly structured into ad groups that are tight and targeted, that then allows you to write good ad text for each ad group. If you have big, flabby ad groups that have no real definition and there's too much going on, then your advertising text is going to have to be very generic, which means it'll be a rubbish advert, it won't get clicked on very much, your quality score will go through the floor, all the bad stuff will happen. So this is why a well-managed, well-run, well-structured campaign will reduce your costs and improve performance through something as simple as this, just understanding the way that it should be structured and paying attention to it. Does that make sense to everyone? Not that it's complicated. Once you get it, it's dead simple. It's just being aware of it and knowing why it's important and why your campaign needs to be tended like a garden hedge and clipped and just moulded into the right shape. If any of you happen to have a garden hedge. Right, so here you'll see that your daily budget is set at a campaign level. So, for instance, if you knew that you were going to want to set different budgets for different types of key phrases, you need to separate them out into different campaigns. The maximum cost per click can be set at the campaign, ad group or keyword level. So anywhere from the top to the keywords, to the ad groups, or individual key phrases. Ad text is per ad group. That's what we just talked about, which is why it's important to have defined ad groups. And negative keywords can be defined per campaign or per ad group. Negative keywords. So if you were to define a negative keyword at the campaign level, obviously that would cascade down and be applied to everything that's sat beneath it. So if you never want cheap to be a search term in anything you bid on within this campaign, you're better off defining that at the campaign level because it saves you the effort of having to define it in repeated ad groups. If, however, one ad group is about cheap value used stuff and one isn't, then you would apply it simply as a negative keyword in the ad group that you did not want it to apply to, the term cheap used, whatever it may be. Make sense? Again, very, very simple, but the principle is simple, but you can imagine if you've got a big campaign with thousands of words, you've got to really sit down and think about how you want to plan this, about the logic of it, campaigns, ad groups, ad text, then about the matching strategy, and all of these things have to be thought about. Okay, so importance of ad groups. We've talked about it before. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. The really important thing is that your advert applies to all of these, all the key phrases within an ad group. And so targeted ad groups will give you targeted ad text, and that will give you a better click-through rate, better quality score. Here we are at this is again an example of what can happen, and I'm not necessarily ridiculing these people, but this is what happens if you don't understand how these things work. You do silly things. This is one ad group, okay? Some stuff about abdominals, some stuff about back, some stuff about buttocks, some stuff about exercise. Exercise. Okay, some exercise program, exercise routine, for losing weight, for burning, glutes, legs, lower body, mid-lobe, pecs, shoulders, side. Basically anything to do with exercise is one ad group. Now you can imagine that the problem here is that this means that all of these phrases are going to be treated the same and they're all going to have the same advert. Which means that you do not have the opportunity to write a nice sexy advert about having a sexy stomach. Can't do it, because they might also have searched for, middle back or something like that. So you no longer have the opportunity of creating good advertising text. So what we should have done is split all of these key phrases into these subsections, which then allows us to write, the bold shows us what the name of the ad group should be, the concept. This would allow us to write focused advertising text for each of these, which again is going to improve the quality of the advertising text, which will then get you more clicks and more traffic, which is presumably what you want. And it will also give you more qualified traffic because people will know what they're clicking on because you've been able to give them a targeted advertisement, and it will reduce your quality score and therefore make your campaign more cost effective. So again, it takes work, it takes a little bit of time, but it's worth doing. Can everyone appreciate how going from that to that is what I mean, is a fundamental part of what I mean by a well-run, well-managed campaign versus one that just, has a list of words as an ad group, and it's too broad, it's too generic. So does that make sense with everyone? Super.
Is there any optimum number of keywords for any specific campaign, do you think? Is there any upper or lower limit you would say is sensible?
Well, I think once you get to huge numbers, it just gets hard to manage. So I think what you have to, I don't think there is an answer to that question, to be perfectly honest with you. I think what you need to do is, even within an ad group, just as an example, legs. You could, if you wanted to, go, okay, well, let's break that down. Let's break that down into hamstrings, quads, calves, as some people do. People who are really into exercising might be searching for quad exercises versus hamstring versus. So it depends on your audience and how your audience are going to be searching. Whereas if you know your audience are just aren't that into it and are just looking for leg stuff, then there's no real need to break it down. So it really is about the suitability for the audience. So 4 and 5, surprisingly short but surprisingly important, and hopefully everyone can. Keyword matching was exact, phrase and broad, and the powerful effect that's going to have, that will have on the way in which you spend the budget, or more particularly the way in which Google spends the budget. And then campaign structure is an indication of how well organised a campaign is and whether or not your advertising text is going to be able to be targeted. Moving on to ad text. If there's any questions, please do shout.